where sanity is? It's a place you visit in your dreams. That strange and wondrous land where nothing is as it seems. Side effects of sanity include always trying to please others through your actions, never fully realizing your potential, struggling to fit within the norms of a society that hates you. Good luck, and have a wonderful life. The management. So welcome to Uranus is Blue. We're sitting here with, we have on the phone, DeAndrea Blaylock Johnson, recently married and hyphenated, who is a sex therapist, aka the Christian sex maven, and an aka
funny.
with a blog entitled Sex for the Saints at blogspot.com. She's an old friend of mine. You can read all about her at uranusisblue.blogspot.com. It's the post entitled Jesus plus Booty equals Peace. I brought her on because there are a lot of folks out there who really need her loving. And the type of loving I'm talking about is that good Christian sex loving, to let you know that you can love Jesus, you can love the Lord, and you can have crazy, kinky sex all at the same time. So thank you, DeAndrea, for calling in and being with us today. How are you doing?
I am wonderfully well. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to hear from you. So to start out, can you give the listeners a little bit of information about what it is you do, how you got into it, and anything else that we might need to know about who you are?
Well, like you said, I am the Christian sex maven. You can follow me on Twitter at CHR Sex Maven. As a sex therapist, I'm just like any other psychotherapist, but I focus on issues that are related to sexuality, specifically diagnosable sexual dysfunction that can be found in any DSM, just like depression or anxiety, anything like that, but specifically related to sex and sexuality. How did I get into it? One of my good friends actually mentioned to me the idea of sex therapy. I was like, hey, wait a minute. And this is when I was an undergrad at St. Louis University. And I knew that I wanted to do therapy of some sort. And I knew I was interested in working with people and healing relationships, but just wasn't quite sure, how I would go into that. I went on and got my master's degree in social work and knew that I would work toward getting a clinical license, and then started the certification process to be a sex therapist. But I just felt that sex and sexuality is a topic that is not talked about in a progressive manner in a lot of faith communities, specifically in the Black church. A lot of the sex talks or sermons are usually coming from a place of fear and a place of condemnation, whereas when people do get married, it's like, oh, I can have sex now?
Right.
Can I do that? And then some denominations will even go as far as telling you that you cannot do specific positions. One friend was telling me how one denomination said that she couldn't do man from behind or style doggy style because it's not of God. Or a woman on top, you couldn't do that because that was against the order of God.
If you grow up in the Christian church as a Black female, people don't want to be considered whores or Jezebels or all the other negative terms that are thrown at them, from the Bible or in the church or from men. They're never taught how to behave sexually from their parents or families. And then they get married, and all of a sudden they're expected by their husbands to be able to perform in these magical, magnificent ways.
Yes, and it's the cliche, as Luda made famous, Ludacris made famous. I want to lady in the streets and the freak in the bed. Everywhere else you got to be Miss Prim and proper, the perfect wife, and go to work and have this saintly attitude, but get home and get down and dirty. And honestly, it's just very unrealistic, but unfortunately, that's what's propagated to folks. That's what people believe that they have to do. As long as I know the Kama Sutra and I can put my leg here.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to keep my husband.
So what does healthy Christian sex look like?
Healthy Christian sex looks like healthy sex with anybody. In healthy Christian sex, you can understand that it can also be a spiritual experience. Even Paul talks about it in his writings. He mentioned how union with your spouse can help them achieve salvation. The church is really mostly based on Paul's writings, a lot of the different things that we believe. But if you look at other pre-Christian religions, they talk about the spirit of sex and how really it's physically the closest you can be to someone. So imagine what happens with that spiritually. If you're physically the closest you can be to someone, spiritually, there are different exchanges there as well. If you look at the physicality of it, there are fluids exchange, but also there's a spiritual exchange. And anytime you have a union with someone, you have an opportunity to either edify and build the person up or take them down as well. It's all about intent. And so if you are uniting with someone with intention to grow closer to them, I think that you do have the opportunity to grow closer to God in that, because God is spirit and we are spirit as well. The Bible teaches that we come from, that we are a temple of the Holy Spirit. And so if my spirit unites with someone else's spirit, that takes us just a little closer to God, I believe.
So what about single people? And this is for men and women, people who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s, and maybe are not married, never been married, don't plan to get married, maybe divorced. Are they allowed to have sex?
This is where my kind of controversial views come in. I know what the Bible teaches. Teaches that you should wait until you are spiritually united with someone in marriage to have sex. Do I necessarily fully agree with that? I don't think I do. Only because we are made to be sexual beings, rather. On one hand, if I'm with someone, if I'm counseling someone who holds that belief, my job is not to say, but I think you can. No, I'm going to meet that client where they are. And if they staunchly hold that belief, I'm not going to go contrary to that. But I would probably talk with them about masturbation, helping them to understand that it's a gift. Because I think it's crazy stuff. People are trying to say that masturbation is not appropriate, it's of the devil. It doesn't make sense why, when we have the ability to deal with those urges on our own, why shouldn't we be able to? If it becomes an obsession almost, or a compulsion, I can't go to work unless I have a orgasm. And then that's veering into something different.
I'm of the opinion that if God did not intend for us to masturbate, God would have made our arms shorter. You know what I mean? or at least, because it's too easy. It's like your hands fall exactly where they're supposed to. It's so beautiful and wonderful. And both for men and women, our bodies are designed to enjoy ourselves. Even babies, babies are always playing with themselves. If we weren't intended to masturbate, I don't even know why I'm here.
Yes, there are actually sonograms of babies masturbating in utero. If I say you shouldn't masturbate because it's against the use of God, it's against the word of God, I just think that and using sex as a way to control. Because if I can control your sexuality, well, to a certain point, I can control you.
People don't even feel like they have influence over the outcomes in their lives because everybody's controlling every aspect of their lives. Like, I totally get it when people kind of throw in the towel and say, well, I'm just gonna be fatalistic and whatever happens happens. It's because their control and their power over themselves has been taken from them by the people in their lives.
That's the place of fear that people end up coming from when it relates to things of sexuality, as far as people from the church. They don't want it to become like, I guess, a compulsion or anything, and they may not use those terms. But it's like any little thing that may lead you down the wrong road, I'm going to tell you can't do it. And then I'm going to just slap and say that God said it. I have the attitude that as long as those that are participating are consenting and old enough to consent and able to consent, so that excludes children, that excludes animals, because animals can't consent. As long as those that are involved are consenting and there's safety, do what you do.
What is your definition of safe sex?
Safe sex to me equals agreed upon terms among those participating. Whether that is the use of condoms or any other type of prophylactics. How people that are into kink, they may have safe words. You know, having all of those terms agreed upon before. And people may say, oh, that kills the mood. No, actually, I think it gives you more liberty to enjoy yourself. Because then you're not doing all the stuff, the self-talk in your head during the act. Or, you know, thinking, should I ask him to put on a condom? Because, you know, I really would rather that he put one on. Or, you know, you're not doing all of that. You did that beforehand. And so then in the act, you can just enjoy yourself.
Okay, so what about in relationships? Because I get a lot of questions from young women who are disgruntled about the young men that are available to them. There seems to be this complaint among black women that there aren't enough black men to fulfill their sexual and marital desires. And there's a similar complaint among black men that black women are this way and that way and this way and that way. And so they date outside of the race and they marry outside of the race for similar reasons. Now I'm giving kind of a global perspective on what I hear. Now, whether or not this is actually true, what do you think black women are to do with, you know, so few, quote, black men available?
One, I think that they should not believe the hype. The idea that there aren't enough available black men, I think that's a myth that is put out to make people nervous. On the flip side of that, with black men, there are tons of people that are available, but we often have ideas of what we think our mate should be. And not saying that all of them are crap, because like you should have certain standards. But is it really necessary that they drive a specific car? Is it necessary that they have a specific level of income? You know, we have all these criteria and it's this checklist that we look at, and a lot of times those things are more material than character-based.
In the black community, and I agree with you on the fact that, or should I say on the opinion, on the belief, whatever, that it's a bunch of hype that there aren't enough black men and black women to go around that are healthy and capable of raising good, healthy families and having good, healthy sex. I'm with you there. However, you're starting to kind of sound like Steve Harvey. Am I supposed to lower my material standards just because brothers can't get a job?
Don't put me in the same.
I know, right? Ooh, ouch.
Because I can't stand Steve Harvey. I have a blog post. Why I dislike Steve Harvey.
Why do you dislike Steve Harvey?
I was reading my Essence magazine on the way to China, and he had an advice column. And there was a woman that wrote into him and said that she had been with her husband for a few years, and he started to put on weight. And she was, beginning to lose her sexual attraction to him. And she was like, what should I do? And he told her to stop giving him sex.
So what does a woman do in that circumstance? If a woman is married to a man and over time just loses attraction to him, a man is with a woman and his wife is changing from when they married, what are people supposed to do?
First of all, I wonder, have they had an honest conversation that wasn't mean? Did they sit down and talk about it? Have they maybe thought about saying, hey, baby, I know we put on a little bit of weight. What you think about working out together? Or you know what? I'm going to try these new recipes because I want us to start eating healthier. Let's cook together. And let's, there are just so many different things that I think you can do other than cutting off sex. I think that was very irresponsible advice. And then also, in Paul's writings, he talks about how you shouldn't use sex as a weapon. I just think it's mean.
How integral to a relationship is sex? Like, is sex something that should always be there? If you've been married to someone for a while, or if you've been dating someone for a while, and you've agreed that you are connected, whether you're legally married or not, and you're not having sex but once every 2-3 months, is that a signal that your relationship isn't healthy?
I think it just depends on that relationship because sex changes throughout cycles of relationships. It could be a couple that's been married 30 years and they're in their 60s and their desires to have intercourse, per se, may have changed, but they may have another ritual that's sex to them. It could be just them laying in the bed together and holding each other, or it could be just oral sex or manual stimulation or whatever. I think it's just so particular to the relationship. Now, if you are in a situation where you feel that you're not getting enough or your partner wants too much and you just don't have the same desire, again, it goes back to having those honest conversations, not, yelling at each other and then sleeping back to back because y'all just had an argument and she wants too much sex and I'm not interested, or vice versa. It all boils down to communication. And a lot of sex therapy, probably 95% of sex therapy, is really just relationship, vocalizing what it is that you need, what it is that you want, and what it is that you don't want, and being honest about that, and learning to be okay with whatever that may be.
When I was in college, I took a psychology of sex class. It was a huge auditorium class. I went up to the professor and I said, I asked him, at what point has sex occurred? And he told me sex occurs when penis enters vagina. This is what my college professor told me. Right. So hold on a second. Hold on. So what you just said was, to how integral sex is to a relationship. If the people perceive it as sex to them, then it's still sex. So what is sex to you?
I think that it is a very heterosexist view to say that sex occurs when penis enters vagina. Because what about somebody who has a vagina that is interested in having a penis anywhere near it, or someone that has a penis that isn't interested in having a vagina anywhere near it? I think that's so wrong. There was this class that I had to attend, sexual attitude reassessment, where we were basically flooded with just a lot of different sexual images, and then we had to process them. And one, we had to watch a video, actually for people that have physical disabilities, to learn how to modify sex. and to know that it's okay to modify it and that you are still a sexual being. And there are many different ways that you can express yourself sexually. And I remember seeing a couple, it was a woman and a husband, a black couple, where the husband had some type of injury where he was paralyzed from the waist down. So he didn't have the ability to have an erection. But they did some type of, it was like her rubbing on him, like she would straddle him, and she would actually come to orgasm. And although he was not able to physically orgasm, that was sex for him, and that was sex for her. And so they were able to have their sexual needs and let them still connect with each other without penis entering vagina.
Speaking of penises that don't want vaginas anywhere near them and vaginas that don't want penises anywhere near them, from a Christian perspective, what is your opinion about homosexuality and how it fits in the church?
Homosexuality is something that occurs in nature. It occurs in plants. It occurs in animals. However, what the Bible teaches is contrary to that. My personal opinion is that we all love. I personally don't see anything wrong with that. I think about a recent study that I just saw where they measured sexual attraction or sexual arousal in men and women. They were trying to find different ways of doing it because some ways are more invasive, but they found that they could measure sexual arousal by pupil dilation. And so in the women, what they found was that women were, even if they were self-identified heterosexual, they were equally as aroused by images of men as they were of women, on the same level as women that identified as bisexual. The idea, and what research shows, is that women's sexuality is more fluid. Women are more fluid as far as what is sexually arousing to us. And so with all of this research and everything, to me, personally, like I said, I feel that you love who you love, how you love, and as long as it's a healthy relationship or situation, I ain't got no problem with it. Now, the issue comes in when you throw the Bible in there. You know, the Old Testament talks about how it's an abomination and this, that, and the other. And so it's very difficult for me personally to reconcile my belief with the church. I've come to the idea come to the decision that I don't have to.
All right.
When people come into my office, I'm going to meet them where they are. I think that reparative therapy is crap. Are you familiar with reparative therapy?
No.
No. Okay. Reparative therapy is basically where they send you to Jesus camp, and they're supposed to turn you from homosexual to heterosexual.
Oh my gosh, I heard about that. What about the churches where they go and they change people from gay to straight, and how it's quote worked on some people? And that's their argument for continuing to do that, is that it works.
Yeah, I would like to see a longitudinal study on that. How long does it work?
Right.
And does it really work? Is it just that person decides to live a life of no sexual interaction with other people? Do they just suppress those sexual urges? I think that some people will say, oh, well, she doesn't believe that God can change and heal people of homosexuality. And that's the issue that I have. I don't think that it's something that people have to be healed from. It's not cancer. It's not HIV. It's love.
I don't like it when people misinform people with agendas because they have agendas that they don't want known, or because somebody's trying to control somebody. Give people an opportunity to think for themselves and come up with the wrong answer. How have you discerned what's the truth and what's not the truth?
Well, why not pray for discernment on a very regular basis? very regular basis. Also, the word tells us to study to show yourself approved. Study for yourself. Look it up. There are so many different versions of the Bible and various different languages and translations and all of that good stuff.
What about preachers' kids? First of all, what is the stereotype of preachers' kids? And why does the stereotype exist?
They get a bad rap. I think because if you are the child of the preacher, then you are supposed to be perfect. You are not supposed to sin because you got the pastor living in your house. Because of course, if I hold this belief as true, then I also believe that the pastor is perfect and he cannot sin, like, ever. That just helps with an unrealistic expectation. So any little thing that they do is then even more so amplified. So I think what some people have done, they're just like, forget it. I'm not going to try to live up to this unrealistic expectation. I'm going to just do whatever I want, whenever I want, whenever it hits me. And, a lot of people reach that point in their life, but just because they're associated with a leader, a religious leader or a faith leader, then it's even more so amplified. It's unfair.
Right.
How do we combat that? Just
rebelling.
Being real. And understanding that there are people too, and everybody misses the mark. The etymology of the word sin is to miss the mark. And everybody misses the mark from time to time. If we didn't, what would be the point of having a Savior?
And in defense of the preacher's kids, I am not a preacher's kid, but when you grow up in the Pentecostal and the Kojic and all these churches, you're pretty much held up to the same standard as preacher's kids, no matter where you go. So it's almost like being forced to either pick you're going to be good or you're going to be bad. And so you either have to pick trying to be a representation of some idea of what good is, or you have to be real. Like you said, just be real. What kind of questions do you get?
Is that normal? Like, that's the most common question I get. XYZ happens. Is that normal? Normalcy, number one, is overrated. It's just an imperative that we don't compare our experiences to others.
This is a game. It's called Is That a Sin? Are you ready? Now I'm asking you this from your perspective in a way that is congruent with both your views and the biblical perspective simultaneously. Okay, the first one is pornography. Is watching pornography a sin?
No. Something that could be viewed pornographic by one person may not view it as another person may not view it as pornographic. So I think it's kind of hard to just put a big red stamp on pornography and say that's a sin. Now, the issue comes in when it interferes with your life. You are no longer aroused or interested in your mate because they are not living up to what you've become accustomed to in your pornographic videos. That becomes an issue.
I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Okay, so the next one. Is this a sin? To have sex with multiple partners. Sin or no sin?
Well, okay, so it's kind of hard for me to reconcile two. So for me, personally, no sin. I don't think that it is, because if they're consensual and you've built yourself spiritually with those different partners, where is that missing the mark? However, the church, not necessarily the Bible, but the church teaches that you should only have sex with one person in your whole entire life. So it's kind of hard to reconcile those two. It's clear as mud.
Okay, it's clear as mud. Multiple sex partners, clear as mud. But from your personal perspective, not a sin.
No.
Is this a sin to sleep with someone else outside of your marriage without telling your spouse?
Without telling your spouse, that's the caveat, because that's exception. Now, if you have a relationship that's, that's called an open relationship or whatever, that, do what you do. But when you dip into deception, that's lying. And that's just not right. That's straight up missing the mark. That's sin. So, having sex outside of your relationship without telling your partner, that's a sin.
Is this a sin to get aroused by watching animals have sex?
No, I don't think it's a sin. Arousal is just a bodily reaction that you can't necessarily always control. Now, do I go around and telling folks that, hey, you should watch animals have sex and get aroused? No, I do not. But if it's just something that happens naturally, ask yourself some questions. What's going on here? Why am I feeling this way? I think it just promotes further self-discovery to understand, now, why did I have this physical reaction? Not to condemn yourself for it. Oh, I'm a horrible person. Woe is me. I got to go fast for 21 days, because this happened. Let's deal with it. What's going on with that? Now, if you go and then attempt to have sex with an animal, yeah, that's just straight up saying, no, don't do that. But, to have an arousal, sit with it. Try to understand, okay, where is this coming from, and don't condemn yourself for it.
Okay. And this is our last one. Is this a sin? Mm-hmm. Extreme masturbation. And when I say extreme, I mean like you have the latest equipment, you have a special room for it. There might be noises from machinery coming out of it. There may be some inflicted pain, and it might happen kind of religiously.
I have to kind of break that down, okay? So if you set a date with yourself that this is where I masturbate, and I have, I had a toy party a few weeks back, and there's this $200 toy that I think would be a grand investment. So you got the latest Leo, and you got this going. I don't think that's fair. But if you get to the point where I can't go to work unless I masturbate, or I can't cook dinner, or I can't get out of bed, then it becomes, it's almost like an addiction. So is it a sin per se? I don't know, but I think when it gets to the point where it is infiltrating every area of your life, you can't cook dinner unless you masturbate. You can't go to work unless you masturbate. You can't make this call unless you masturbate. You can't, and that's when it becomes an issue and it becomes a compulsion. But if it's just every Friday, this is what I do, and I get the Lilo, and I got my special room, and I got the candles going, do your thing.
That's what's up. I can dig that advice. Thank you so much. I feel so much better about my daily practice. It's like anything else, right? I mean, if you drink a glass of wine with dinner every night versus you have to drink wine to be able to function in any capacity, there's a difference between this is just something that we do together as a family or alone as a family or whatever. Versus this is something I have to do in order to function. With anything, it's the same way. If you have to do anything in the physical realm in order to function, there's some issue, there's dependency. There's compulsion, there's other things in question here, because being healthy shouldn't be that hard. And if being healthy is that hard, and by being healthy, I mean just having kind of a regular practice in your life, sleeping enough, eating the right foods, working in a way that fulfills you spiritually and physically, having relationships. If it's that hard, unless you have some type of crutch, it's probably something you might want to talk to DeAndrea about. How can the people reach you?
sexforthesaints.blogspot.com. And if you do need assistance with finding a sex therapist in your area, you can go to ASECT, that's AASECT.org. And they do have a therapist finder on that website if you're looking for a certified sex therapist. There are a lot of people that say, I talk about sex, but they may not necessarily be trained in it. And some people are given some incorrect information. So you want to have somebody that knows what they're talking about. So you can go to asex.org to find an appropriate therapist for you in your area. And you can hit me up on my blog or follow me on Twitter.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, DeAndrea, for speaking with us. This has been a very insightful meeting. I'm so glad we did this.
Me too.
Uranus is Blue. You can subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube, Blogspot. Just click all the little links that are around this video. And have a wonderful day. And good sex.